If you write anything on your computer, you need to get Grammarly.
I write pretty much all day.
People will say it's fake. Trust me, there is no one on this earth that wishes more it was fake. Four stories of Reddit nuclear revenge. I've really liked this girl for a while that I met at a lifeguard certification course, and I talked to her while I was there and I thought, ended up hitting it off. We exchanged numbers and social media and all that, and we messaged for a few weeks before I asked her out to a movie, which she accepted. We'd been going on casual dates, nothing too serious, and we weren't hanging out at my place or her place, even though I'd hinted at the idea, for a few weeks before one of her friends, someone that was also at the lifeguarding course that I met and kept in contact with because he was cool, sends me a screenshot. It showed a nude pic and the conversation went like this: "Friend, aren't you and Dude going out now?" Her, "Not really, but as long as he keeps paying for everything I'll let him take me out more, girls gotta eat." He said he felt bad for me because I was nice and that she does this often to other dudes. After seeing this, I asked her to go on a nice date with me to a hibachi grill restaurant. $20, $40 plates and premium desserts are served here. I got the most expensive thing they had and so did she. We both got fancy ice cream and multiple refills on drinks. I complimented her a lot and smiled consistently, before getting up to go to the bathroom and leaving. I was also her ride. About 45 minutes after, I get furious texts from her saying that she had to have her mom come down and pay for it because she didn't have the money on her and that we were done. I know it's not a lot and it sucks because I thought she was actually into me, but it felt pretty nice leaving her that way. I'm a photographer, and was working with a super sweet couple. Everything was normal up until the cocktail hour. My partner and I were setting stuff up for the reception, and the groom comes up to us and asks the DJ if he can play a video for his wife. We assume it's some cute slideshow or something. Toasts happen, then the video starts to play. Turns out the bride was sleeping with the best man, and the video was from a private investigator. The whole room went silent. Bride runs out, best man goes to follow her, groom's father punches best man out. Everyone else ended up staying and having a great party. Super nice people. I ended up shooting the groom's second wedding. I asked him why we went though with it. Apparently they had a prenup. At the time of divorce, if adultery could be proven, the offending party owed the other $15K. Back when I still was in university, I used to work for a hotel to make ends meet. When I started, the hotel very urgently needed new personnel. So I cut a deal with the old owner about getting to choose and pick shifts, so I could visit my courses and exams. Speaking some extra foreign languages, I also got a little bonus each month on top. The old owner was a great guy. He owned multiple hotels, so I rarely saw him. But when he was in the house, he always made a point to have drinks with the staff, chat with us, and if we were free he even invited those of the front desk to fancy restaurants who were not on shift. Fast forward. I had worked in the hotel for a few years now and was nearing the completion of my studies. So it wouldn't have been an eternity until I had to quit anyway. As I was of course more interested to work in my field of study. As part of my deal with the old owner, I mostly chose to work night shifts, allowing me to visit my courses at university during the day. To make up for my privileges, I had picked up the habit of doing some extra work in the dead of night other shifts would normally have to do, when I on contrast could have sat around and stared at the walls. People were grateful for the help in the beginning. And we became a rather tight-knit group. But over time people rotated in and out. When the old owner retired and as a whole of a son took over the business as the new owner, I already feared the worst. The new owner didn't like me very much. I never found out the exact reason for that one. I was at that point nearly the sole veteran left from when I started. Among the tasks I had taken on was doing light clerical tasks to ease the manager's job in the morning. For that, I generally had to use the manager's network account. One night while doing my lists, I logged into the manager's account and emailed to do my job. Then I saw an email with my name in the subject line. I know it is not nice to snoop, but of course, I read it. Turns out the new owner wanted to get rid of me. I still had my old employee contract with the bonuses for foreign language abilities and was allowed by my contract to pick and choose shifts. I can only assume these privileges are what made the new owner hate me. No idea if he had other reasons. Because to be honest, these seem very weak to me. But he couldn't fire me without cause. On top of that, I would be owed severance if fired. And generally, there were not enough bodies in the shift rotation without me. Though the new owner didn't seem to understand that point, as the emails told me. I looked for more email concerning me and found them. There was an email chain between some of the employees, the manager and the new owner. I was of course not in the mail trail as I was the hated topic. The employees didn't like me hogging the night shifts, because those paid better, and for every night you worked you got paid the night bonus. The manager was the only one rather neutral on the matter and just curbed their enthusiasm to get rid of me, as they needed me to be fully staffed. The new owner and my colleagues actively conspired to make a hostile work environment so I would quit of my own volition. I was furious. I thought about a variety of reactions, from egging their cars to burning down the hotel. But I settled on a less crazy method of revenge. I called my uncle at 2 a.m. asking for advice. My uncle is a lawyer, so for sake of proof, I forwarded myself all the emails. I made photos, printed them out, made copies and filmed the whole deal just to be sure. My uncle told me to sit tight and see if things got worse, or if it was just bluster. And so I gave it a few days. And things did take a turn. Snide remarks about my looks, clothing and so on were only the tip of the iceberg. Some of the colleagues were just as professional as before. But the conspirators always left extra work for me or pawned the bad duties they normally had to do on me. I always kept a spare shirt and suit at work, just to have a change, which suddenly disappeared. One guy even started to threaten me with violence. But I kept clenching my butt cheeks. I would not give them the satisfaction of saving on the severance or giving in. I am a big boy after all. I did, however, stop doing any extra work I was not obligated to do, which in the end was the reason they used to fire me. They still had to pay me severance. The next day my uncle, with bundled proof of the email and all documented harassment by my colleagues, served the hotel my lawsuit. It started with wrongful termination and ended with harassment. Reportedly the manager went white as a sheet when he realized where the emails must have come from. The new owner had been on vacation and had to cancel his expensive vacation in France to deal with this. Their counsel advised them to settle. So I accepted my severance and a hefty bonus on top. Enough money to last me until the end of university without work. But that was not all my revenge. I had gone after the new owner's money. But in the next step, I went after the hotel. I had used all the spare time during night shifts alone to document every last violation of city, county, district, state and federal law I could find. That went from minor things like some harmless mold under the kitchen sink to substantial violations like modifications to the building. The building was under a limited form of historical protection by federal law, on the ground of being built and inhabited by somewhat important historical figures a few hundred years back, so every renovation or change in floor plans needs to be signed off on by a committee, which can take ages. There is also a grant paid to the new owner by the government for keeping the building intact as is. So with my uncle's help, I sent documentation of every violation I could find to the corresponding agency. In 1 month everything from health, building code, fire safety to the finance, and work police crawled over the hotel. In the end, it was the building and fire inspectors that shut the place down. The new owner had done substantial renovations to the top floor luxury apartments, which he used when he was in town. So the new owner had to pay back the grant, pay fines for unauthorized alterations to the building, endangering his guests, because something wasn't built right according to fire code, and had to close down shop until the building was fixed. I also tipped off a friend who had studied journalism and worked at a local paper. The paper ran an article on all the violations accumulated, which tanked the business once it had reopened, as the newspaper article had led to horrible reviews. In the end, to afford all the fines, repayments and building costs, the new owner sold the hotel. As the cherry on top, all the a-holes who had tried to harass me out lost their job. Granted, the people who didn't do anything to me lost their jobs too, but didn't do anything to stand up for me or help me either. So I don't feel too much remorse. And the revenge cherry on top was that the new owner, whenever he was in town, used to bring home escorts, which in my country is not illegal. But he was married. It took some doing to get that information to the new owner's wife. But one of my former colleagues, who had quit before this had all happened, had her email. So I let her know what the new owner was up to when he was out of town. I don't know what exactly happened, but they did divorce in the end. Make of that what you will. I know myself, it sounds completely insane, and a few people will say it's fake. Trust, there is no one on this earth that wishes it was fake, more than me. If I could go back, I would go the neighbors sooner, but my reality is that I caused the death of my mom. I had to mature very early. I became like a surrogate to my sister for those last 3 years. I only wanted him to beat her up, he go to jail, and my mom get help. I never wanted her to die. First, this is a throwaway account. Take this as you will. This is my story of my revenge against my mother and the devil. First, our father passed away 4 years before all this started. Car crash. Maybe our lives would have been better if he hadn't died that day. Also, before I get into this, one thing you should know is, before this man came into our lives, our mother was amazing. She was loving, supportive, and put us above everything. But she would soon replace us with her new man and her new meth habit. When I was around 9 and my little sister 7, our mom started dating this man. Let's call him Pos. Pos was tall and weighed about 250 pounds. He had oily, brown hair and a face filled with sores. I didn't like him from the start. He made me uncomfortable, to say the least. A few months after they started dating, Pos moved into our house. Everything was okay for the first few weeks, I guess. Then my mom started to act funny. Staying up all night, not cooking us lunch or supper, not cleaning, snapping at us for no reason, and started hitting us. Our lives had been turned upside down by this man so quickly. Then one night he came into my bedroom, held me down and did things to me I'd rather not say. I was screaming and crying for my mom, begging her to come help me, to come save me please. And then I seen her, standing in the door watching him do this me. My mom was just letting him do this to me. She was just watching, like she was looking at a TV or something. When he finished, and climbed off of me, he walked up to my mom, kissed her, and walked away with her. My mom just left me, crying and bleeding. I was just broken and she allowed it to happen. Not long after they walked out, I hear them having sex in the living room. It was my 10th birthday. Happy birthday to me. A couple of nights later I hear my little sister crying. I get out of bed to find my mom standing in her doorway. I run to the room to try to help her, and my mom sees me. She backhands me across the face, making me slam against the hallway wall. I can hear my sister crying and begging, with no one coming to help her. That was the day, I started hating my mother. This went on for 3 years. I didn't know at the beginning but soon found out. Pos had gotten my mom using meth. Pos and meth were the only important things in her life. My sister and I were nothing more than his play toys. I soon started noticing them arguing more and more about who got more hits. This one was stashing from the other one, and you smoked the last of it all by yourself. This is when I started planning my revenge. I noticed after about 3 days they would finally pass out, and would sleep for almost 2. And their bag of meth would always be on the bedside table, beside Pos. I know most would ask, why didn't you call the police, or child welfare? Because jail wasn't enough. He might have done the most horrible things with us, but she betrayed us. She turned her back on us. And I wanted revenge and wanted her to suffer like we had. So every chance I got I would move the bag, just at first. Make it look tampered with. Then I started taking it from the bag and placing some on my mom's table. These things alone caused a lot of fighting. They started getting physical. I would keep my sister and I out of sight when this went on. And they never lasted long. Well, I continued to do this over a couple of months, taking more and more, flushing it, or dropping it down the sink. Until the last day. The last day I took the whole bag. It was a good amount. They had just re-upped, like they would say. I flushed the whole bag, and locked my sister and I in my room, and quietly prayed that they didn't realize it was me. I am not sure how long after I did this, that everything started. But we had watched like 3 Disney movies before they finally woke up, and then I heard him start yelling about his missing bag. The yelling got louder and more intense. Then I heard the breaking of objects. It was starting to getting bad now. I hear my mom go from angry to scared. I hear him hitting her begging him to stop, swearing she didn't touch it. He continues to hit and she continues to beg, begging him to stop hurting her, begging someone to come help her, begging like we begged her for so many nights. My sister started asking to leave. She was scared and crying. I opened my window, put my sister outside and followed. We ran to the neighbors and told them that Pos was beating our mom. The neighbor called the police and brought us inside, and we watched as the police pulled up to our house, started to walk up to the door, stopped for a second and then started yelling police, and kicked the door open. After what felt like forever, we see Pos being brought out to the police car. I wait to see my mom follow, but she doesn't. I see an ambulance pull up and the paramedics run in the gurney. A short time later I see them rushing back with my mom. I catch a glimpse of her once beautiful face, now looking like ground meat. Her face was solid red, covered in blood. She ended up dying on the way to the hospital. I never planned to have my mother killed. I just wanted her to feel the pain we had been feeling for these last years. And I guess in the end she did. She felt the pain and terror we felt every night for the last 3 years. She just felt it all in one night. Do I feel bad about what I did? No, I don't. If I didn't do what I did, we would have been stuck there, having horrible things happening to us and being beaten every day until one of us would have died. Paz was convicted of second-degree murder, possession of drug paraphernalia, I flushed the actual drugs, and 23 counts of aggravated R and 17 counts of aggravated R against a person under 12 years of age. That last one is a death sentence where this all happened. We moved a few states over, to be with our dad's parents. We hadn't seen them in almost 4 years, and for the first time in a long time, we actually felt safe. My sister, still to this day, doesn't know what I did. Doesn't know that I played a big part in our mom's death. And since we never talk about either of them, it never comes up. We are both happily married now. I have 3 children, she has 2. Both of us are active members of our PTA. No one looking at us today would ever guess the hell we went through, or what I did to get us out of it. Thanks for listening to Radio TTS. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell for more revenge videos. Click the right box for the Nuclear Revenge playlist. Share your own revenge stories in the comments below. He pushed me over and I just snapped. I hit him in the face with the pint glass I was holding. The whole thing broke on his face. There was so much blood. People who are murderers, attempted murderers, assaulters, arsonists or whatever else? What is your side of the story? Are you sympathetic? Were you caught? How do you feel about it now? Technically guilty of murder. My dad had Lou Gehrig's disease and I helped him get a high dose of Nimbutal. We kept it for a couple of months until he stopped basically being able to communicate. Eventually he was losing control of his legs, but he really wanted to take it himself. So we mixed it with some porridge, goes down easier, and he took some antiemetics over the course of the day. Then in the evening he ate the porridge with the crazy green drug in it and he died. Where I live, this is murder. My dad was dying low, with no possible hope of a cure. He couldn't speak, choked constantly, could barely sleep and could only use 2 fingers. His life was hell. He didn't want to live and had said it would get to that point from the moment he was diagnosed. One of his parents also died the same way. I regret nothing. I'm just thankful it's not the known genetic form. I'm a hospice nurse. When people are really close to death you have to be really careful with them. You have to turn unconscious people every 2 hours to prevent skin breakdown. Sometimes when you turn them, their lungs collapse and they die. Sometimes they aspirate, inhale their liquid medications, no matter how carefully or slowly you give them, and they die. Sometimes when you bathe them, they die. Sometimes, I feel like a mass murderer and I really hate my job. I'm really good at my job and I know that I make a positive difference in my patients' and families' lives and I love that part. I'm also scared because I don't cry anymore or feel anything when people die, like my heart is a rock in my chest. I killed a man. I have no regrets, I was never caught, and in the same situation I'd do it again, because I honestly believe it was him or me. He tried to mug me, I didn't let him, he got violent. When he pulled a knife I decided it was all or nothing so, yeah. He died. I didn't care but I got away from the scene. I felt no guilt and I still don't, but I was terrified about being caught. It probably went down as just another drugged up scumbag getting his comeuppance. I broke his hand, crushed his throat, managed to get him over my shoulder so he fell headfirst onto the curb and kicked his sternum until it broke. I suppose that might have crushed his heart or something. Could have been the head versus ground thing too. I honestly don't care. He attacked, he had a weapon, I protected myself. One less a-hole at large. More manslaughter than murder but whatever. I killed him and I sleep easy at night. Vandal and arson, the neighbor down the street from us, killed my dachshund. She was a little older than a puppy and very sweet. One night she tunneled out from our backyard and I had to run after her. I thought she was in some bushes but I was wrong. I was hidden behind these bushes when I saw my neighbor's minivan run her down. They backed up, hit her again, backed up, and ran her over once more before they left. For some reason I didn't feel like telling my parents that because it's a bad story. It was better to just say she didn't suffer and that it was quick. In the meantime, I was breaking their sprinkler system and I sprinkled weed killer on their yard so the grass and flowers turned brown. They had 4 cars and I broke all their windows and stole all their radios. I had no idea how to steal radios, so it turned out horrible. I ruined their wood paneling. The car alarms went off but no one came out. I carefully stuck nails into their yard by the ladder, by the recycling bin, and by the sprinkler timer so there would be a greater chance of one of them stepping onto the nails. They installed cameras by the house so I didn't want to risk going inside. When they installed the new glass windows, I broke them again and set fire to the inside. It didn't feel like anything, it was boring. I should have left her body on their pillow to remind them of what they did. I should have taken their miniature poodles and dropped them off at the Human Society several towns over. I should have taken a knife to all their furniture and left picture of dead dogs in every room of that house. I should have poured animal blood in all their bedrooms and filled all their orange juice or milk with blood. But that requires energy I don't have. About 13 years ago, my sister, young teen at the time, started dating her first boyfriend. Kid was 19. He was completely obsessed, would verbally abuse her, etc. etc. As far as I know, his abuse never got physical, but after she broke up with him, he'd creep around our parents' house, call the house at 3 a.m. just to hang up, threaten her. He pretty much managed to piss me off. So, said guy worked at a driving school where he corrected test quizzes after hours. I drove there one evening with a friend to give him one last warning. He told me to F off or he'd call the cops. So my friend and I took out my friend's aluminum baseball bat out of the trunk, tuned up the kid's car a bit, and, when he came outside, took one good swing to his legs. Then I told him he could call the cops now. He never did. The phone calls stopped. I never saw him again. Not quite the dramatic story, but it's all I got. Someone raped a female friend of mine, and she wouldn't go to the police about it. The guy was drunk and forced himself on her. She doesn't drink. Caught the guy from behind one night by chance and beat and kicked the crap out of him, took his wallet, and left. Lived in a bad area at the time. A guy getting mugged late at night was nothing more than a statistic. I figured a completely random beating might have drawn more attention. I later found out that he'd done the same thing to at least one other woman. I have zero regrets, beyond not thinking enough to aim for his genitals more. I'm pretty sure I'd have a lot more trouble sleeping at night if I'd done nothing. A guy pushed me over in a bar. I'm a girl. This guy had previously assaulted women. He had punched his ex in the face and had been to court for bottling a woman, but he was never sentenced because there wasn't enough evidence. But yeah, he pushed me over and I just snapped. I hit him in the face with the pint glass I was holding. The whole thing broke on his face. There was so much blood. The police were called. I was being really calm and coherent. I was cooperating with them so they didn't cuff me. I got in the car with them and was held in a call overnight. Couple of no-comment interviews later and I'm free. Went to court and plead guilty. Got 180 hours community service, £285 fine and a 6-week exclusion order from bars, pubs and clubs. Looking back, I overreacted. But he really deserved it. I still have glass in my hand. And this happened about 2 or 3 months ago. I met a girl when I was 14 and stayed with her till 20. Something happened to her that changed her personality after a year together. I eventually learned she had been raped by the HVAC guy while her parents were a few hours away on business. I tracked him down and hospitalized him. Not comfortable saying more, because it was severe and I was never caught. The end. I had a plan to kill my mother, but I never went through with it. The story is she was a heroin addict that cleaned up her life and had actually become a drug and alcohol counselor when I went to live with her when I was 14. By the time I was 16, she had started to abuse prescription drugs and our relationship was getting increasingly more abusive. She would keep me up at night being loud and high. Sometimes she'd wake me up at random times to cry and tell me she wanted to die, that her life was miserable, and apologize for being such a bad mom. Then in the morning, she would grab me by the ankle and pull me out of bed, yelling the whole time about how stupid I was and how ungrateful I was and how I was such a terrible kid. Looking back, it was a textbook abuse. One second she was telling me she was the only person who actually loved me, then next tearing me down, telling me I wasn't worth anything, that I shouldn't go to college. She tried to convince me not to go to school, or work, or to hang out with my friends. She threw things at me, shoved me around, and would block the door when I tried to leave the room rather than fight with her. After months of escalating behavior, not being able to sleep at night, not having any food in the house except when I would buy it, I snapped. I started to plan her fake suicide. I was going to feed her every pill in her pill box, literally a 10-gallon Tupperware filled with pill bottles. The reason I didn't try is actually because other people tried to kill her before and it didn't work. Also, I wasn't really sure how I was going to get her to take all those pills without showing evidence of a struggle. Eventually, I broke down and told my best friend what was going on. She immediately told her parents and I went to live with her until I went to college. I'm a girl. I was 15 when this happened. Legally, I'm responsible for the death of my best friend and her unborn baby, my godchild. I've told this story before, but not on a throwaway, and the hatred I received, although there was also the kind words, caused me to delete my account. One guy threatened to talk to his uncle, a judge, to see if anything could be done to incarcerate me. But I just thought that was embarrassing, especially as I've been through the police stuff and there's nothing they want to do. Story time. My best friend and I were abused by my biological father. She turned to anorexia in the next few years to cope. She relapsed 100 times, hospitalized 4 times. She seemed better. I was dealing with my own stuff for a while and she was there for me, and was amazing, and everything a best friend should be. Then she got pregnant, by her boyfriend, although she was still only 16. Her body was still weak, she'd only had maybe 2 periods before this in the previous 4 months. And then came relapse. I noticed. I figured it out and I didn't want her to be mad at me. We'd only started repairing our friendship again and I didn't want to lose her. Ironic. So I didn't tell anyone. I assumed her love of her baby would cause her to eat for it. Her parents then figured it out. She invited me over, accused me of telling them and attacked me. She was effing weak, but she threw things, a suitcase, for example, and eventually, to stop her, I hit her back. It wasn't a strong smack, but it was enough. She was hospitalized the next day and she lost her baby, and then, maybe 12 hours later, she died. Her face when her mom told her she miscarried still haunts me. I wasn't allowed to the funeral, I still don't know where her grave is. So I hit a pregnant anorexic. Eggshell rule says I'm responsible, but only after refusing to report her relapse, for selfish reasons. Have at me. Arsonist here. I guess it was 8 or 9 years ago now. Things were kinda tough, so my son and I were selling dessert foods down at the pier. That place was so effing uncomfortable, cramped, hot, but we need to scrape things together to get by. We also had to support my brother, since he couldn't seem to get his things together. He didn't live with us at the time, but we'd help him out with this and that. We'd give him some small work here and there to help with his self-confidence, but he was a real screw-up. Our father was also in jail for a number of things. For a time, it seemed like jail was exactly what he needed to get his life in order. My mother was a constant chore, too. She treated people like garbage and has always been lying and manipulative. Lots of family issues there, but whatever. Anyway, this was also when my sister and her family had just moved back. Which was nice, because my niece and my son were about the same age, so they got to hang out and became friends. I was glad, since it helped take his mind off things a bit. But after working down at the pier for so long, something happened. I guess the stress just got to my son, because I got a call from my niece one day. I got down to the pier and my son had sort of snapped. He wasn't really acting like himself, he was frantic, saying he was gonna do this and that. I decided enough was enough. I didn't want my son's teenage years to be like mine. I didn't want him constantly trying to make me happy when clearly he was having a terrible time. I wanted him to have fun, to enjoy himself, all that stuff. And that's when we burned down the banana stand. A number of years ago I was at a party, heavily liquored up, when all of a sudden a fight broke out. When I noticed one of my friends was getting beat up, I jumped in to save him and thus got the crap kicked out of me by a number of coked out gentlemen. In the midst of the chaos and between consciousness and drunkenness I managed to get the pocket knife out of my pocket and I latched onto the nearest effer I could get my hands on. I ended up on the back of the biggest guy and I slashed across his neck. He made it to the hospital to get stitches and rather than press charges, declared a vendetta. The state thought differently and carried through with the charges themselves. They charged me with attempted manslaughter and assault with a deadly weapon. I took a deal and did 395 days in a medium security state penitentiary. I haven't seen him since, but I know we both have families, lives, futures. My only hope is that he has long since forgiven me and now lives in peace. The only thing I regret about the whole ordeal is that I didn't get to this thread any sooner. Thanks for listening to a more serious episode of Radio TTS. I have very mixed feelings about these stories. Share your own thoughts in the comments and let me know what you think. Hit the subscribe button for more controversial videos like this. Warning. This episode is extremely dark and includes stories about brutal accidents, death and suicide. Please do not watch this if you are not mentally prepared to cope with such things. What has been a deep dark secret you have kept hidden? I was walking super depressed around St. Louis once. I was about 17. Saw a young heavyset woman crying and muttering something like help me help me. I kept walking, avoiding eye contact and saying something like not today, sorry. A few hundred feet later I looked back and saw her wading into the river, paused for a few moments and she disappeared. It was freezing and nobody else saw. I was considering suicide myself at the time and figured I had witnessed a victory instead of a defeat. Nowadays I am sorry and shamed, but back then I was jealous. This was back in 2014 or so. For a couple of years I held the fact that I was heading into an early grave. I was 23, wasn't likely to make it past 40. I had, technically still have, but it's under control, a bowel thing that periodically hit the halt button on my ability to digest food. Consider lots of gross details omitted. Broke up with my girlfriend, she wanted kids and I refused the idea of having children who'd have to watch me die before they graduate. Plus she's the Christian type to stick by me even if it crushes her dreams, not gonna allow that. Refused to tell my parents, we see plenty of each other already and I didn't want them to spend 5 to 15 years thinking about how they were probably going to bury me. Really glad I did because after a year of fiddling with experimental treatments, simple testosterone pills given to counteract other medication turned out to be all I needed. I'm a moron with medical jargon, but they kickstart something in my thyroid which made my pancreas work more normally, which stabilized my bowels. Pretty much just pop a couple whenever I start to feel low and I'm all good for a month or so. I think I'm unable to be passionate. I have interests, kinda, I have hobbies, of sorts, but if you were to ask me what I wanted in life in general or just in the moment, the best answer I got is to not die in the next 2 decades or so. I went over to my uncle's place to go swimming a few years ago. I had to take one of those big poops, so I went in their half bath right inside the house. Apparently, I didn't flush enough so it flooded the inside of the house with toilet water and my poops. But my cousin went to pee right before it flooded, so he got blamed for it and had to help clean it up. The only reason I didn't come forward is because I went to the store and came back when they were almost done cleaning, so I felt like going oh, that was me, would just escalate the anger even further. So I just let it end and never brought it up again. Many years ago I was dispatched to a job for an adult male struck by subway. As a paramedic I have been down this road a few times, it never ends well for anyone. FDNY got the train blocked and the MTA guys had the third rail covered and grounds placed, so it was time for me to slip under the car and figure a way out. As I slipped in and began talking to the patient, and it became very obvious he was not going to live. His face was looking down at the ties but his feet were facing up, one leg was under his neck. He basically was folded in half and turned 180 degrees over the length of his body. The weight of the subway car was holding his intestines and liver in position. His back was opened and one kidney was actually exposed. I started an IV and gave him some IV morphine. I slithered up to his face and had the single most difficult conversation I ever had with him, about the fact that as soon as we moved the subway car he was going to slip into shock and die. I refused to ever not be 100% honest with my patients. He asked me a few questions about the process and what was going to happen. I asked if he wanted to call anyone and he said no. Knowing what was about to happen, I asked if he wanted more morphine. I had an open order so I gave him an extremely stiff dose. I wanted to eliminate as much of his suffering as possible. He got basically 3 doses at once. He wasn't conscious when we lifted the car. He had no blood pressure and went into a cardiac arrhythmia almost instantly. He never felt a thing. I have ataraxia. It's defined as the absence of worry essentially. So I don't get worried about anything ever. You might think, wow, that sounds flipping amazing. It isn't. If my boss is correcting me, I'm just sitting there absorbing what it is I need to correct. I don't look scolded or anything people look for when they correct someone. If there is a deadline that needs to be met, you get the same reaction out of me whether it's 6 weeks away or 6 minutes. I used to work probation and parole. One of my bosses said that I was too callous when dealing with offenders because I couldn't be worried for them. When my wife is upset with me she thinks I don't give a crap. I do, but in my own way I guess. It's from an early childhood trauma I don't remember. My wife knows about it and teases me by calling me autistic. This isn't nice to autistic people, but I'm fairly certain this is how she processes my perceived apathy over everything in life. If I were to liken it to anything in popular culture, I would say that I emulate the dude. But not a good way, more in a sad way, I guess. I was repeatedly molested by my brother when I was growing up. I didn't even register it as something bad. It was until recently, when I was remembering, that I noticed that his games were actually sexual abuse. Now, that thought has been in my mind almost every hour of every day. It's consuming me and burning me out, and I don't know what to do. In Japan, I heart surgeon. Number 1. Steady hand. One day, Yakuza boss need new heart. I do operation. But, mistake. Yakuza boss die. Yakuza very mad. I hide in fishing boat, come to America. No English, no food, no money. Daryl give me job. Now I have house, American car, and new woman. Daryl save life. My big secret, I kill Yakuza boss on purpose. I good surgeon. The best. I have a delusional disorder, and don't listen to the voices anymore, even though I still have contact with them. I miss when I believed that I had special powers, and could talk to God. Here's 3 that I haven't told anyone until today. Number 1. I had sex with a transvestite for money because I was homeless and starving. I thought he was my friend, so I asked him for food or cash. He then said he wanted to try something since he apparently had a crush on me this entire time and offered me $200. I had to get really drunk in order to do this. Then I woke up the next morning hungover and the money suddenly disappeared out of my pocket. So, basically did it for free, but then he gave me a sandwich because thinks it must have been stolen by his roommates. Number 2. Sex hurts me, like psychologically. I've been screwed up big time since I was 10 years old. Till this day, the idea of sex or anything affectionate actually feels like my soul is being ripped apart by Satan more than it brings me joy. I'm a pretty decent looking guy who attracts women often, but I've never once held a relationship for this reason. I wanted to feel again, but I can't seem to. Number 3. I've been seriously thinking about suicide for the past 2 years. I've learned to never speak about things like this to anyone, ever. As a guy, I don't really ever talk about my feelings because I'm afraid of the social stigma, but I can feel the day coming when I'll finally just drive my car into a brick wall at full speed. Almost succeeded 7 months ago. I'm addicted to Unisom. I'm in college and have 4 830 classes. I had a roommate and she kept me up at night, so I went to 7-Eleven and bought Unisom and threw away the receipt. If she was with her friends, I'd just pop one when they showed up. If her and her boyfriend were arguing at 4 a.m., I'd take one. I'm not at the point where I take 40 a day, but sometimes if I feel like I can't sleep, I'll just take one, or if I want to take a nap at 12:30 until 4 and can't get to sleep fast enough, I'll take one. Must have finished half the pack, and already I'm building a tolerance. Not at the point where I take 50 a day like Eminem did, but I feel I might be if I don't stop. I've been trying to get clean, and want to go 26 days without it. In fact, because of his songs, I only take one if I have to, since I live in a dorm. Science says if you go 26 days without a habit, you lose it. I did tell my mom I took a midday nap on one, but I blamed it on Advil PM and a nasty headache from being tired. She got mad, so I lied and just said the headache was so bad I had to sleep it off. Thankfully I got my own room, but keep taking pills, since I didn't want to waste the money and I felt like it was no big deal. I decided to quit because one day I had to wake up with my alarm and spent a good minute forgetting I was asleep. I couldn't move and everything was blurry. I was so scared because what if there was a fire and I couldn't wake up? I live in a dorm, after all. In addition, I've begun zoning out in all my classes or not talking in classes where participation is your grade. I even showed up to one of my classes off of sleeping pills, looking high as a kite. It sucks for classes like ASL where you can't talk and have to look at the signs. I'm on day 3 of detox, as I started Wednesday. Thing is, it sucks being sober. I figured if I leave the pills at school, I'll end up not wanting to use them. I get pounding headaches, I always feel nauseous and tired, and I flip my emotions like a switch. I even threw up last night. If I get asked about my headaches, I'll just blame it on the snow and the cold weather. In fact, I thought my withdrawal symptoms were the cold weather, since I always get bad headaches during the cold. But after Googling my symptoms, I realized poop. I don't tell my parents because they'll kill me. For stuff like the vomiting, I blamed it on eating too much, since the night I went home, I had a lot of Chinese food. I don't even know if they have an idea, since a lot of my parents' friends were the type to get addicted to stuff. Even my mom, not parent I'm talking about, herself is addicted to a lot of pills, and I bet sleeping pills might be one of them. If anything, I'll blame it on stuff like I didn't get enough sleep or I picked up a virus at school. Thanks for listening this slightly darker episode of Radio TTS. I was shocked about some of these stories. Very dark and very brutal, but the reality is not a soap opera. And sometimes it is good to listen to these things in order to be more appreciative about the good things. Hit the subscribe button for more videos with lighter content.
Throwaway time. What's your secret that could literally ruin your life if it came out? My father never had anything other than boys, and my mother always wanted a girl. Try as they might, they just had tons of boys. When I was 6 they adopted a girl of also 6. Everyone was pleased, and she was quickly included into the family by everyone. And we all took an immediate shine to her, especially me. We started playing doctor at 9. This progressed to fooling around by our early teens, and into actual sex shortly thereafter. We're both over 30 now. We have sex whenever we see each other. We also like to pretend we are twins when we do have sex. We've both had our shares of girlfriends and boyfriends, but we always kept it up even while in those relationships. She's actually married now. We still have sex about 2 times 1 month. More when the family gets together for holidays. I can't even imagine the bricks that would be shat if anyone ever found out. It's been close a few times, especially when we were younger, but nobody's ever caught on. I lit a tree on fire for kicks, and ended burning half a forest down and several homes went up in flames in the process. I wanted to say I did that when I saw it on the news. My great uncle Jack used to live with my family. One day, he got drunk and had a bad fall that ended up causing him to bleed out. I ended up finding him. I was 14 at the time and had never seen such an awful sight and lost consciousness due to all the blood. When I eventually recovered, I called the ambulance and stayed with my uncle. He died in the back of the ambulance, holding my hand. Number one knows about what happened to me, and if they did they would realize that I'm the reason he's dead. A while back I was in this gang with a few buddies of mine. Well, one day we decided to fight this other gang, but like 3 or 4 other gangs showed up out of nowhere. It turned into a full-on brawl. It escalated quickly. I ended up killing this guy with a trident. I came very close to committing a school shooting. I was picked on a lot in high school. I think it was because I tried so hard to be cool and everyone saw right through it. There were these 4 cowboy jock types that gave it to me the worst. After being publicly humiliated and beaten in front of a girl I liked as she cheered, I decided that none of it was worth it anymore. I had no support at home, being an only child and having parents that worked constantly, and cutting and burning myself didn't make me feel better anymore. So I got my dad's handgun out of the gun safe. He uses the same combo for everything. The idiot, and brought it to school with me the next day. I can't adequately describe to you guys how ready I was to kill these 4. I had absolutely no fear or doubt in my mind. I wanted nothing more than to show everyone what happens when you push someone over the edge like that. I had the gun tucked in my waistline. I was wearing this baggy pair of cargo shorts that I wore a couple times 1 week that day. I remember walking towards the cowboys table, so goddamn ready for it to be over, when the gun fell out of my waistline, down my left short leg, and made the loudest bloody sound as it hit the cafeteria floor. I tried my best to grab the gun real quick, but people saw what it was, and screamed, and one of the instructors tackled me to the ground. They eventually concluded that I had brought the gun to school to impress people with good assembly, and had no intention of using it. I was expelled and sent to live at a youth ranch in Idaho until I was 18. I didn't have the intention of using it then. I was going to kill all of them. I'm 24 now, and I still think about it all the time. I have not recovered from high school. I'm still terrified of people in general, and avoid having relationships because of what I fear I'm capable of. I'm not looking for pity. I know that what I did was wrong. It just feels good to tell the story. I'm a guy in my late 20s who was taken into care age 7. Everyone around me already knows that I was brought up by foster families because I had a crap early childhood. I deliberately keep it vague and say stuff like I'd rather not go into it so that people will just assume I was abused in some way and they'll stop asking about about it. The truth is that for the first 7 years of my life, I was brought up as a girl by my psycho birth mother who really wanted a daughter and didn't let the snag of giving birth to a boy stop her from trying to raise one. She was a pretty successful professional in a legal field, not entirely sure what, and had me via anonymous sperm donor from a fertility clinic. She found out I was a boy at a late ultrasound and then moved across the country, gave birth to me at home and continued to move about until I was 5 or so. It was just the two of us all my life. We had contact with other people, of course, but they rarely got very close. I had lots of friends, but was always supervised. I found out way after that my mother's strong puritanical Christianity was a lie she used to explain why she was so strict about me being private and never letting anyone see me get changed or anything. I just accepted all of this as fact. Having never been told anything different, I was sent to a religious school for girls and had a really great childhood. I was a bit of a tomboy, and played with Lego and toy animals, rather than dolls and stuff. But that's not unusual and no one ever questioned I was a girl, even me. I knew about men and women, but had never really seen much of naked people. My mother never ever spoke to me about it, but I kinda had the impression that when I grew up and got boobs and stuff, my dick would kinda fall off or something and I would be a woman. And other kids would keep their dicks and they'd be men. I don't know. To be honest, I never really thought about it. Anyway, I carried on with my happy girlhood, and had a bunch of friends and everything was great, until I was 7 and the teacher accidentally spilled a cup of hot coffee over me at school. The liquid soaked through my clothes and was scalding me, so the staff immediately stripped me out of my dress and underwear to get the hot coffee away from my skin. And then they found out. The cops were called, and I got taken to speak with who I guess would be social services. They asked me a bunch of questions about life at home and stuff. Meanwhile, my mother was taken in for questioning too. She refused to acknowledge me as male and insisted I was her daughter, because she was, you know, delusional and stuff. I wasn't allowed to go back home, but got put with a foster family and went through loads of therapy and stuff. The worst part was that literally overnight, I lost everything. My mother, my home, all my toys, all my clothes. I moved school, so lost all my friends. They cut all my hair off and told me I wasn't a girl anymore. It was really traumatic. The first foster home wasn't that great. They had 3 boys already, and going from a sheltered religious-only child upbringing to a rough and tumble testosterone-filled environment was really difficult. They tried to force me to be masculine, and I was just too confused about what they wanted. Anything girly was reprimanded and I felt so lost and alone, because nothing I did was right. I tried to commit suicide when I was 11 and then again at 13 because I didn't feel I fitted in anyway. After the second attempt, they moved me to a different foster family who were awesome. I consider them to be my parents. They actually stood up for me. The first thing was that they get me grow my hair. From when I got taken into care, they buzzed my hair short and I hated it. They always had to hold me down and do it forcibly while I was crying and fighting. My new parents flatly refused to do it and said that loads of boys had long hair. They also let me quit karate and football and take up swimming and jazz dance. Since I'd been in care, no one had ever stood up for my right to choose what activities to do, or how to dress before. It was amazing. In the end, I came out of it with a pretty healthy gender identity. I am a guy, but not the most butch guy ever, but I'm fine with that. I went through school and got my degree and have a pretty good job and an amazing supportive wife. Everything looks great, but I can never speak about my early childhood, and how I was growing up as a little girl. I lose sleep every night because I feel like I was a shitty brother. My younger sibling is 5 years younger than me and I always felt like I was a crappy role model and a terrible example to him. I treated him like crap and I really hindered his childhood. Now he's one of my best friends. But we both know it happened and I can never forgive myself. Yeah, I see people confession worse crap like near suicide and cum boxes. That was really fucked up. Bloody reddit, but it doesn't mean it doesn't affect me. I love my brother and I would take a bullet for him. But not one day goes by where I wish I could go back in time and change how I treated him. I don't believe in regrets, but this will always be looming over my shoulders. I pick my nose and eat it with some regularity. Nobody knows that I do this, including my girlfriend, who I spend every night with. It probably wouldn't be all that catastrophic horrific if people found out, but it certainly feels that way to me. IT guy here. It's amazing what people will do on their computers and say their emails, despite having to sign a waiver that all computer activity at work is monitored and recorded. I have half the company's banking, social media and personal email account info and passwords. I know who is secretly banging who at the office behind their spouses' backs. I know who is cybering at work and jerking it in the bathroom almost daily. At least they tell their sex chat partner they're running off to the bathroom to jerk it. Haven't felt the need to check the validity of that one. I know when people are having marital problems, financial problems. I even know one person here had their children taken away because a social worker found cocaine in their house. I know who is embezzling money. I know when people get fired for completely bullshit reasons like they just want to replace them with someone younger and nicer on the others. And I know who my boss is buying Xanax and Vicodins from. Basically, I have a treasure trove of my co-workers' secrets. I won't actively do anything with this info, but it's nice knowing I have the ammunition there. If something were to ever happen. I got sucked off by a guy at a party, then sucked him off. Only gay experience. Am now engaged. Have to say, was fun but not quite my cup of tea. Glad I gave it a shot. Won't be telling the fiancé about that. 26-year-old male. I have visited 30 escorts over a 4-year period. This includes girls at the Amsterdam red light district to girls and Asian massage parlors. First time was about 6 months after breaking up with my first girlfriend. To be honest, I stopped counting how many times I've actually paid a visit to one of these girls. Was never very confident with girls growing up, so this was much easier than actually having to put myself out there. I guess I'm actually fairly good looking and have much more confidence now. It's only in the last couple years that I've come to realize how easy it is to attract girls, and sadly recall how much time and money I've wasted on escorts. Been almost 1 year since I once made a visit. Did a rough count. Placed the number roughly around 34 different girls. Surely I'm forgetting some. With a going rate of $200 to $300 each time. Well, it makes me sick to do the math on that one, but probably close to $10,000 total. Some of these girls I saw 3 times at most. At least it provides me with more motivation to keep away from this hobby. I used to masturbate a lot, and when I was 10 I had a technique where I'd let off a load into a sock, then wash it and quickly dry it. Now I couldn't leave it hanging outside, or use a dryer, otherwise my family would have seen it and probably smell it or whatnot. So I'd put it inside my gas heater unit. Unfortunately my sock had caught on fire inside the unit, blew it up and set my house on fire. Only my brother was home at the time, and he managed to survive. The house did not. For 5 years we stayed from caravan park to caravan park whilst we waited for confirmation that it was not arson and we could receive an insurance payout. We eventually did and scraped together money to start rebuilding the house. The house is still being rebuilt to this day, and it shames me anytime I have to visit my parents living in a tiny mobile home where my backyard once was. When I was 13 I caught my father in bed with my 15-year-old brother's girlfriend, also 15. I haven't seen her since, but I've been blackmailing my father with it for the last 6 years. Thanks for listening, my little ice cream sandwiches. Subscribe to Radio TTS for more videos like this. What's your secret that could literally ruin your life if it came out? Cousin died when we were both 17. There was a reception at his house just after the funeral. I went into his room and stole all the money that was there. Took some other valuables that his parents wouldn't realize were gone. No one knows that I did it. They just assumed he didn't have any money in his room. Only loose change. I don't regret it, but I will never admit I did it. Also my cum box. 2.5 years ago I was in dire financial straits, so I sold my home to keep my struggling business afloat. I neglected to tell the owners that they have an 800 square feet bunker on the property that I built about 7 years ago. The bunker that I've called home since I sold it. The entrance to it is well hidden, but I still come and go very early, very late in the day. I'm a single man who keeps to himself. I'm now in a situation where I could move somewhere else, but I love this hidden paradise so much. I don't want to be with my girlfriend anymore, but she might have cancer and I feel like I need to stay in the relationship. Everyone thinks I have a good job and roommates, but I've been homeless and a prostitute for over a year. There's an exhaust port on one side of the station I work at, about 2 meters wide. I was supposed to seal it up during construction but I never got around to it. If someone were to fire a couple of torpedoes down there and they reached the station's core, well, I'd have a lot more than my job to worry about, that's for sure. While on deployment, I killed a man in a coup de grace. The feelings of taking a man's life always weigh a heavy burden on me every day. No one likes hurting people. He had been hit by some of our mobile artillery. While part of me wanted the bastard to be in pain, it wasn't right. My medic was busy with my wound, and as the officer on duty I took out my .45 and put one in his head. I knew my boys wouldn't say anything. Most just watched, accepted it as a fact of war, and kept walking. I remember throwing up afterwards. I came home and everyone acted like I was a hero. I never felt like more of a sham my entire life. First time telling anyone this. This thread is so deep that probably no one will see, but if one person does see it, it'll feel better. I am basically living a lie. I told my entire family I was able to transfer out of community college and into a university, but I never finished up the requirements. Since I live at home, every day instead of going to school I go to the local library and BS. My lies are so extensive, I even go to the campus and meet my girlfriend for lunch sometimes. I've made fake transcripts to show my family, and to make it look like I'm actually studying. I go to Meetup and Coursera to look up facts that I learned in class that day. I have become a remarkable liar. I hope to be transferring in the fall and then I look forward to living a normal life. Coming clean is not an option at this point. This isn't necessarily something that could ruin my life, but it could ruin many others. I haven't told anyone before. My father recently went to prison for a white-collar crime that he pleaded guilty to. He didn't commit this crime, but the alternative was fighting a highly sensationalized, media-obsessed, scapegoat case and potentially getting 20+ years. While he was in prison, I read his little blue book, which I knew contained all the missteps of everyone he's worked with. He has always been an extremely scrupulous man, so these offenses were something he took seriously enough to note. I have information on countless state employees, incredibly prominent and wealthy community members, numerous elected city-state officials, and police officers. This information could ruin lives and start political controversy. My father is an incredible man and is not vengeful whatsoever. He will never use any of this info against these people, despite the fact that most completely turned on him and stayed uninvolved at all costs or started pointing fingers. When I picture my aging father sitting in a maximum security jail cell, sleeping on a metal sheet without a mattress, he wasn't given one until his 5th night. I am filled with rage for these people who could have stood up for their friend and prevented this, while he still continues to be loyal. I still haven't decided which campaigns, if any, I'm going to ruin in the upcoming elections. Masturbated in class during high school on several occasions. The girl in front of me that I accidentally jizzed on one time became my prom date. Bag M and tag M. I hate all of my friends. Literally, I don't have anything in common with any of them, and don't care. But I'm too scared to be alone and have no one else to go to, so I keep hanging around with them. I have been pretending to be colorblind to everyone I have ever known, including my own parents since I was in 3rd grade. I am now 28 years old. I even convinced an optometrist of it. When I was 15, my parents were going through a divorce. My mom worked night shifts and my dad was living with a friend of his. One night my sister, who was 19 at the time, came home pretty drunk from a party. She was acting goofy and fell on the couch next to me. She started grabbing my leg and laughing and we started fondling. We ended up having sex right there. When we woke up the next day, she had no recollection of the night before, so I just kept my mouth shut. Fast forward to when I am 18. Sister is home from college and dad is over for a visit. They get into an argument and in a fit of rage my dad announces how he has never forgiven her for the abortion she got when she was 19 and subsequently killing his grandchild. He's very religious. I then realize the baby she aborted was in fact mine, and as far as I know, I am the only one who knows, since she has never mentioned that night. Buried comment, but here goes. Not life ruining, but makes me feel like shit every time I think about it. As I've told Reddit before, I have a blind brother. When we were young, I used to get so frustrated at all the extra attention he received and how I had to be more responsible with my sibling than my peers. So, when my brother and I would go play, go to the store, or just generally go anywhere without adults, I would abandon him somewhere unfamiliar to him. Then, I would stand off quietly and watch the anxiety set in as he tried to figure out where he was, and what was going on. Also, I was really intelligent as a child and knew that was my ticket to attention. When I would help my brother with his homework, I would teach him all the wrong answers, so that I could continue being the smarter sibling. Today, my brother is my best friend. He goes to college and lives by himself. He's become one of the most intelligent men I've ever met. I'm trying to make it up to him now by being the best big sister ever, but I still feel so guilty at how I found him to be a burden when I was a kid. Update: I immediately called my brother after posting this and caught him while he was walking to a study group. I told him about my guilt and he laughed. He understands how frustrating it must have been. He told me that all of the good things I have done as a sister completely overshadow anything bad I did and that he loves me more than anything. I'm glad I spoke with him and I encourage others on here to talk to someone if they can. I accidentally killed 7 people. I put a rag into a new water heater exhaust to keep debris out and installed it in a rental. I get a call a week later. There's been an accident. I show up and there's a ton of M's and police. They ask me where the gas shut-off is, and I go down to shut the gas off and see the end of the rag I forgot sticking out of the top of the heater. Rip the rag out, shut the gas off and head upstairs only to be told all the tenants were dead. I drink all day now and sleep. It's killing me from the inside every single day. But if I say anything, my family is ruined. We have a bunch of rental properties and we'd be shut down. I faked having a chronic pain condition for 5.5 years in order to not have to attend middle school and high school. I was placed on a homebound program, not homeschooling, and allowed to study at my own pace from home. I was able to fool a team of medical professionals, my family, my teachers, and my friends into believing that my symptoms were real. Also, I racked up over $100,000 in medical bills for my family. That's just what the insurance didn't cover. During those 5.5 years I did not realize the extent of the medical bills until late into my life, and it was one of the main reasons I decided enough was enough. Upon graduating from high school and getting accepted into a good university, I decided that it was time for my pain to go away. No one has questioned the fact that my symptoms vanished overnight. My medical team attributed it to the fact that I was nearing the end of puberty. What I did was an asshole thing, and my family is continuing to drown in debt from medical bills. I plan to pay them back someday. I simply started the hoax because I was a 12-year-old who absolutely loathed middle school. I attempted to end the lie at the beginning of every school year, but eventually fell back into saying my pain prevented me from attending school. Today I feel horrible about what I did, and I desperately want to tell everyone that it was a lie. But I know that I cannot because I will never gain credibility back again. Those of you who are saying I am an asshole, you are right. I wholeheartedly agree with you. I do want to address a couple things. This occurred over a decade ago. I have since graduated from undergrad and law school. I am currently an associate at a large law firm, and I am in a position to pay my parents back. I have tried many times to pay my parents back the $50,000 they already have paid off. I have also tried to get them to let me assume the remaining $50,000 in medical bills. They refuse to let me. My hope is that they will allow me to help them with their retirement. I think some ground is being made in those negotiations. I do not intend to stiff my parents. I truly do plan on repaying them some way. Me and my cousin have been doing it for 10 years now. It started when she was 12 and I was 13. We had to babysit the younger kids in our family while the parents went to a party, and when they fell asleep, me and her got to talking about a lot of stuff. I made a move and started kissing her, and she didn't resist. We ended up doing it on her bed that night. We would end up banging almost every weekend when we lived with our parents, telling our parents we were going out to hang out with some friends, but actually hook up. I'm 23 with my own apartment now, and she comes over almost every day to make out. I faked the last 2 years of college education. My parents put so much pressure on me I couldn't handle it. I was suffering from severe depression and anxiety, so I faked it all, lied to everyone, made up fake transcripts. I just got my foot in the door in my desired field thanks to a friend as they hired me as a subordinate. This place only hires college grads, but no one double-checked my credentials since I was recommended. My hopes is that if I need to find another job I'll have been at this place long enough to get it by experience alone. I work for a very prestigious company. I'm not bad at my job. I'm actually quite good. But my fear is eventually I'll hit a wall and the lie will come to light. No one has known this for the better part of a decade. It's a relief to finally say it out loud. I can't even tell those I love. My silence is my prison. Thanks for listening, my little ice cream sandwiches. Subscribe to Radio TTS for more videos like this.
What secret could ruin your life? Serious replies only. What secret could ruin my life? I secretly take off my hijab. On social media I wear the hijab. In front of all my parents, other family, most of my friends, I wear a hijab. Here's my story. When I graduated 2 years ago I decided to look for a job, and I wasn't able to land anything. I came up with the idea to start interviewing without wearing one, and once I get an offer I'd start wearing it again. I ended up getting 2 great job offers, which made me really sad that my theory of taking it off and easily finding a job was true. I took one and haven't worn it to work at all. I don't know what happened in the mix of things. I guess I started to like the attention men gave me and I actually felt like I belonged/normal with my peers. It was a feeling I've never felt. Everyone started treating me different, as if I was worth speaking to. I don't get weird looks anymore. I don't get asked weird questions. I'm too afraid to tell my parents about it because of disappointment, and I'm even more afraid of the Muslim community finding out. Bullying and talking crap happens a lot to girls who take it off. I wear it to family functions, and when I'm at a place where I know I can run into someone I know. So yes, in essence I guess I am living a double life. Say what you want, I'm okay for now living like this. I keep changing my mind on what I permanent want to do. Some guy convinced naive 15-year-old me to send nudes and then used it against me for 6 months. He found me on Facebook and threatened to send them to my friends list if I didn't do whatever he asked me to. He would make me get online whenever he asked and have me masturbate for him. He even tried to get me to meet up with him in person. I got really lucky when his profiles just disappeared one day and I took that opportunity to delete every social media account I had. I haven't gone back since and I never will. It really messed me up for a while, but I don't really have anyone to blame but myself. It's been 6 years since and I still haven't told anyone I know this story. I don't really have anyone to blame but myself. Yes you do. You blame the effing creep who blackmailed and threatened a 15-year-old, taking advantage of the naivety and impulse decision-making that teenagers are literally known for and incapable of overcoming until their brain chemistry settles down. Not your fault. A while back, I was cheating on my wife with a coworker. It went on for months, and I never really cared for the woman I was cheating with. She was super hot, though. After a while my coworker started getting really crazy and threatening to tell my wife, whom I had a child with and a baby on the way, about everything. Obviously, I kept trying to cut things off because I realized I was making a mistake. She lost it one night and was freaking out and texting me telling me she was going to come to my house, and a drunk driver hit her. She died instantly. No one knows I was having an affair, and my family went to her funeral. I was picked on a lot in primary school. One kid, we'll call him Jonathan, got quite antsy with skipping ropes and used to whip me with them before chasing me with it if I ran away. He also called me some pretty horrible names. When I was 10 years old, the bullying was relentless and spread to multiple people bullying me. If I told the school, they would tell off the bullies, but the behavior would still continue. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. As Jonathan came charging towards me with his friends, ready to start whipping. For lack of a better word, I stood rigid with a plastic tennis racket, and with all of my anger, spun in one complete circle. I didn't expect to move so quickly, nor for the racket to hit anything. I was quite weird and had poor hand-eye coordination when I was young, but the racket slammed straight to the side of his face, causing him to bleed quite heavily. He had to go home that day. I'm 17 now, and I've seen him a couple of times since. His head healed, but he sustained minor, temporary brain damage because of it. Prior to me reuniting with him, I genuinely thought I had killed him. I still hate how I caused all of this damage to him. Jonathan's friends were simply too scared to tell the teacher of what I did, for fear of how I'd react. Up until this point, I'd been intelligent, quiet and secluded. When I suddenly snapped and attacked, it came as a huge shock to them. They, mostly, stopped talking to me as well. People may tell me to try and reconcile with him, but the truth is that I will never, ever forgive him for the crap he put me through for 2 years. This secret is a bad one. When I was 15 and incredibly lonely one summer, I decided to make an OkCupid account. For those of you who don't know, that's a dating website for people 18 plus. I looked probably about 17 at the time, but I guess I could pass for 18. So I said I was 18 on my account. I got a lot of responses from guys instantly. There was this one that stood out to me. His name was James. He was a 22-year-old college student working at Tim Hortons, but me at 15 thought he was the most intelligent and beautiful person I've ever met. We talked for 3 months and then he turned 23. Now the age gap was 8 years. After those 3 summer months of staying up all night, we decided to meet up in person. It was Labor Day weekend when we met up. He picked me up from a gas station and drove me to his house. We lived 3 hours away and I told him that my car didn't work, but really I only had my permit and no car. I honestly think I fell in love with him and we hit it off completely. He was really attractive and different from guys my age. Guys my age would make fun of how I looked because they were insecure themselves and teased me a lot when they were interested in me, which just confused me. But James would compliment me and joke with me but never made me feel insecure. I really loved him, but when the relationship progressed he was talking about having sex and I told him that I was a virgin, which he was okay with. But after I turned 16, I realized that he was a 23-year-old man who could get in a lot of trouble if he was to sleep with me. I never told him my age because I knew he'd be disgusted with himself, so I just cut all ties with him all day. I figured it was selfish to keep him around. He needed somebody who could be 100% honest with him. So in March I basically blocked him on all social media and my phone. He didn't know where I lived, and I never saw or spoke to him again. It's been 2 years, but I sometimes stalk his Facebook. He's actually engaged now and graduated college. I'm so happy that everything is going well for him. I'm only 18 now, but I hope one day I'll find a guy who is as great as James. So, don't really know how to start this off, but I'm attracted to beds. It started somewhere during my early high school years, when I was really starting to discover myself. There was something about beds, the fact that when you go to sleep at night, you're always with them. Their purpose is to make you feel comfortable at night, when you're at your most vulnerable. Anyway, I modified my twin bed towards the end of high school, essentially tearing the fabric, shoving some pillows in the side, and make a little hole that I could insert myself into. I've always known that the behavior is odd, but I can't help myself. Nowadays, I live with my girlfriend. I don't have that twin bed anymore, but anytime we have sex, it has to be on a bed. If it's not, I can't get hard. Needless to say, if this got out, it'd truly F me over. This is a pretty innocent fetish, man. Don't worry too much about this one. I am in serious debt because of a drug addiction I used to have, of which my family didn't know I had. I'm almost 2 years clean now, but I can hardly pay any bills I have, and I'm afraid to ask any family member for money because I know I can't pay them back in the near future. I've been in a strictly sexual relationship with a first cousin for the last 5 years. We only ever saw each other once or twice a year growing up before she moved to the other side of the country, and then never really saw or interacted with each other again until 5 years ago when she moved back. What started as us meeting up once in a while has become a regular thing in the last few months. It's escalated to the point where we're now sexting each other. I'm scared to death of what might happen if anyone in our family finds out, but I don't want to stop what's happening either. This won't ruin me because I've already went no contact with my mom. but it still hurts and is a big secret I've not told anyone. When I was a kid, I had asthma pretty bad. So, I'd be up all night, coughing constantly. My mom and I lived with her parents. We shared a room, so I slept in her bed often when I was a toddler. Mom would come home from work and lay down for bed, but I'd keep her awake with my coughing. Sometimes at night I'd be coughing and she would hug me so tight that I couldn't breathe. It would really distress me that I couldn't breathe, but I knew Mom loved me so much and I didn't want to tell her she was literally squeezing me to death because I was afraid of hurting her feelings, so I'd just tell her that I loved her so much, and she would cry pretty hard after that. Took me years after having my own kid and treating him gently to figure out that it's actually pretty difficult to squeeze a kid so hard that they couldn't breathe. Mom is bipolar, and has had other incidents of hurting people and abandoning those in her care that need medication and can't take care of themselves. So, I finally put it together and figured out, Mom would be so agitated with my asthma that she would try to stop me from coughing by squeezing me almost to death. And then she would cry out of guilt when I told her I loved her. I joined a job that is known for being absolutely miserable and a good chance of me getting killed. I love it. I was suicidal as a teenager and I gave up, knowing I couldn't kill myself. Now I have a good chance of dying without me having to do anything. And to add to the goods, my family would get a whole lot of life insurance money if I got killed, so I could do them a lot of good becoming a corpse. If word ever got out, I'd be in a lot of trouble and probably pulled. I don't want it. I need this edge or else I fall into a horrible depression. I need the challenge and risk. Edit, for those who guessed, yes I am military. My husband did this with commercial diving / underwater construction, then he actually almost died and decided to quit on his own. We all knew this was why he wanted the job, but knew we couldn't say anything about it. My stepbrother repeatedly molested and raped me from age 11 to 16, I got pregnant and it was definitely his because I was a virgin otherwise.